We caught up with someone you know well, Mr. Friedman of Canyon Partners, someone who you've spoken to quite recently, and he said that the inauguration felt like a commercial for all the best of the United States of America, all the CEOs from the biggest tech firms. Joe Biden, the former president, has said something different. He said an oligarchy is taking shape. How do you see things?
Well, I don't want to side with either side and say either person is right.
You know both of them.
Right. I would say that clearly there are a lot of technology people that are involved with Donald Trump, and they were very visible at the inauguration. You could see the most visible people at the inauguration right behind the president when he was being sworn in were the tech CEOs. The finance CEOs, they must have been in Wall Street doing deals, or maybe they're in Davos. They weren't there. There's no doubt that business people have become very important in the American economy in the last couple of years because of technology. There's no doubt about it. This is true for President Biden, President Trump. The technology companies in the United States are not only dominant in the United States, they're dominant in the world. So if you live anywhere in the world today, can you get through get through the day without using American technology? Almost everybody in the world is using either Amazon or an Apple or Facebook or Google, and European technologies are not quite like that, and even the Asian technology, with the exception of TikTok, isn't really, prevalent. So the American technology leaders have become important business leaders, not only in the United States, but all over the world. And they're more than business leaders, they've become like folk heroes in some ways. People that started these companies, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, among others, and the late Steve Jobs, these are like people much larger than life figures, and I'm not surprised that President Trump would want to involve them, and I think President Biden did meet with them as well.
Mark Zuckerberg said recently in a podcast with Joe Rogan that he felt like the European regulators were going after the US tech firms, and the US administration was giving the Europeans cover to do that. Do you sense a shift where we are now celebrating our national champions under Donald Trump in a way that maybe we haven't done over the last 4 years?
Well, I think all presidents want to celebrate American technologies. I'm not sure exactly what Mark Zuckerberg is referring to, so I can't comment on that. But there's no doubt that when you have American technology companies that are very dominant, Google is another one that had a lot of problems in Europe, you expect Europeans to maybe regulate because they're not happy with the fact that American companies are dominating their technology. Europe and France really invented the internet. They had a kind of an internet before we had the internet, but they kind of lost it. And as a result, today, think of a European technology that you need to get through the day. There's virtually none of them. So I'm not surprised that Europe is upset about it, but Europe is an important ally for the United States, so I don't expect that.
Rolex, Cartier.
Well,
quite literally need them to get through the day.
If you want to have a great summer vacation, there is no place better in the world than, the Mediterranean or Europe. And the museums are great, the food's great, the people are friendly, everything's wonderful. But if you really want to build a great technology company, many of the great technology leaders are moving to the United States from India or from Europe.
So there's a larger question here about how much we've priced in the U.S. market, tech market, divorcing from China at a time when it seems like maybe that's not exactly Donald Trump's plan. And I wonder whether that might be the surprise, actually a shift toward a more amenable approach toward China than currently this market is expecting.
I can't speak for Donald Trump, obviously, and he changes his mind when he feels it's appropriate to do so. He's a very transaction-oriented person. I wouldn't say he's as ideological as transaction-oriented. That would be my perception. And therefore, if he can get a deal with the Chinese on something that would be helpful to the United States, I think he'll do that. I've read that he wants to move there and get there relatively quickly and have a meeting with Xi Jinping. I think that'd be a good idea. But I think it's too early to say whether China is going to go down and the United States is going to go up in terms of their fight between each other, whether it's going to be large tariffs. I think the Secretary of Treasury said, designate, that the tariff policy is a maximalist policy, which is to say it's to be used in negotiating positions. So I suspect that that will be what Donald Trump does, and his people negotiate and have the threat of tariffs, but maybe not impose them.
Well, the reason why I ask this is because we're trying to figure out signal from noise, right? And the TikTok ban that was delayed for 75 days, there's a signal in that maybe there isn't as much of a concern about the national security concerns surrounding a property like this, at least in Donald Trump's mind. And that could open the door to more negotiating between the U.S. and China in a way that a lot of businesses had really backtracked from. How much are you hearing them actually start to look at potential opportunities again with China, given that maybe that got overestimated?
On the national security information and concerns, I don't have access to what the senators and members of the House saw, so I can't comment on that. But I would say Donald Trump is obviously interested in national security, but he may have some way to deal with that if you have an American presence in the company or American ownership. So I just have to wait and see. It might take more than 90 days to actually get this resolved. You know, business deals don't get done that quickly. But the fact that TikTok is able to get the attention of the President of the United States in a way that many people wouldn't have expected a couple months ago shows that this is a technology that obviously has a lot of popularity in the United States. Think about 170 million users, which is staggering when you think about it.
Right now, the takeaway for us from Davos has been this incredible optimism, this whole deal-making surge that we were expecting. Do you think that's overplayed, or do you think that that's going to be validated in the numbers?
Well, the optimism certainly is here. Whether it'll be merited, I don't know yet. But I do think that many business people feel that there'll be more of an opportunity to get regulatory burdens removed. There'll be more opportunity to get things done that won't have antitrust concerns. The SEC won't be as big a challenge for many people. I think that is the feeling of some business people, not everybody. And that is the feeling that I think is fueling a lot of the optimism, sure.
Is that your feeling?
I'm sorry?
Is that your feeling?
I feel it's a different environment. It will be different. I think there were some pluses to some of the things that were done in the previous administration, and there were some things that probably I wouldn't have agreed with, and we'll see what the new administration is going to do. I think an important thing you should think about is this. We've only had a president, the second term, non-consecutively once before. That was Grover Cleveland. And when you have second terms for presidents, sometimes in the second terms they get tired. They make mistakes. Reagan's second term wasn't perfect. Obviously, Nixon had to leave. Bill Clinton had some challenges as well. Maybe that's because in a second term, a president gets tired and his people get tired. Maybe if you have a president who has served as president before, actually knows something about the job, has some chance to think about it, comes back with fresh people, maybe a second term that's not consecutive might produce some good results. Well, time will tell.